Good morning, downtown SLO. Wonderful to see everybody. Welcome to the last day of August, which is pretty hard to believe, but here we are. My name is Bettina Swigger, and I am the CEO of Downtown SLO, and this is our weekly COVID-19 response and recovery call. Very happy to have members of our board of directors of our Downtown Association on the call today, as well as partners from our partners at the City of San Luis Obispo, also at the county and Cal Poly, the media, and other wonderful business owners in the downtown. So thank you so much for being with us today. It was an eventful weekend and an eventful week last week. So we will walk you through where we are today. Today's reality, we have 2,882 positive tests of COVID-19 in SLO County, and that includes 389 positive tests in the city of SLO. We have 21 deaths in our county, and we extend our heartfelt condolences to those who've lost family members to this disease. We are still in the first wave of the disease and of the pandemic. And I do want to remind everybody that testing is available. And if you go to readyslo.org, you can learn about the sites for testing. There's one site at the Vets Hall on Monterey Street. I was tested. It's slightly uncomfortable, but it takes not very long. They'll get you in and out, super safe. And we encourage people to get tested, especially if they have symptoms, but it is available to asymptomatic people as well. So on Friday, we got the announcement that Governor Newsom and the State Public Health Department has released a new blueprint for, oh, somebody's coughing out there. Just a reminder, if you could mute yourself if you are out there, and I hope that you can have a drink of water. So we moved into a new blueprint for the local economy or for the state economy. And before we had counties on a monitoring watch list, but this moves us into a color-coded tier system. So you can see there's purple, red, orange, and yellow. This is defined by the case levels, the positive test rate, and the numbers of daily new cases per 100,000. So it's a little bit different because the county monitoring list was based on hospitalization and some other indicators in addition to that positive case rate. However, in this new system, it's really based just on the cases. So this is intended to be a little bit easier for people to understand, although it is another way of looking at things. However, understanding colors instead of just different monitoring watch list, I guess colors can be easier to understand than words sometimes. So that is where we're at right now. And I think Lee might talk a little bit more about that from the city of SLO when we get to his section. So our county's status, you'll remember the purple is the widespread level. So that means there is a lot of COVID in our area. Purple is the darkest color you can get to. Most of California is this purple color, and that includes San Luis Obispo County. So we are still in this sort of, I don't want to call it a danger tier, but it's where there is widespread risk of getting COVID and the positive rates of COVID. So our county does have this risk. However, we also learned on Friday that with this new tiered system, we are moving into a different phase for some businesses to open up. And that means that hair salons and barbers can now operate indoors, which is great news. In the downtown, we have about 20 hair salons and barbers. So we're really excited that they can open up and operate indoors. Makes sense too. They are licensed by the state and they practice really strict hygiene. So we'll keep an eye on that. But August 31st today is the first day that the salons can reopen. So that's very exciting for them. Our status again is widespread. If you go to this website, and I will drop this in the chat, sorry. We will put this in the chat so that you can access it. It's covid19.ca.gov/safer-economy. You can actually, this is a click down list and it'll go through every single industry sector. So if you have questions about your individual business, if you are a machinist or you operate a car wash or you're a retailer, it'll give you the status of your business. So the idea is to make this more helpful, not less helpful. I hope that I have given you an adequate representation of this new system. I am learning about it myself because it is new, and there was a detailed update given by the Governor Newsom on Friday. If you want to go onto the CA Governor Facebook page, you can find those. There's a full video, and you can learn about that and see it. And also just poke around a little bit on the website. That'll be a good place for you to see how it works. So that's where we are in the state and in the county. And I'm going to invite our partner, Lee Johnson, the Interim Economic Development Manager for the City of SLO now, to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the city. Lee, how are you doing this morning?
Good, Bettina, can you hear me?
Yes, great to see you.
Thank you, good to see you too. So let's start with the changes that the governor made. Yeah, we're in the purple. I don't know if everyone saw the Tribune article, and Dr. Bornstein's been pretty clear that she's not sure that their data on the website lines up with our data. So they're working through getting that straight. And then, so right now we're in purple, and once they get the data sorted out, we'll have a better idea where we stand. We are over where we need to be. Once we get within the metrics, which we'll check every Tuesday. So on Tuesday, you'll know where you are. And if you're in the next level down, so if we meet the metrics to move down a level, we'd have to stay there 2 more Tuesdays to be able to move down a level. And then we would move to the next one down. Then you have to stay in that level for 3 weeks before you can move down another level. Yeah. And then if your numbers get worse, it's 2 weeks or 2 Tuesdays in a row again, then you move back a level if that happens. I saw a question from Stephen about the moving outside again. My guess is that, and we can check with the county once they get some of these other things sorted out, but because purple is the worst, and their salons and barbershops aren't forced outside in purple, I don't think they'll be forced back outside. They'd have to add a whole new level and change what they're doing in purple. So I think salons and barbershops are what they are. As long as they follow the guidelines, they'll be inside. As a group, they're inside. And I think it'll stay that way, but we can get confirmation later in the week as the county gets some of this sorted out. Otherwise, that's basically it on the COVID front. And I think this is better. One, it's more clear. It's more defined, and there's a structured process for it, so we all know where we stand, and we'll be able to see what's next. So, step in the right direction. Everyone, please bear with the state, the county, and the city, because getting websites and everything all sorted out from the old system to the new system takes a little bit of time. But if you have questions, I'm always available at ljohnson@slocity.org. Also on that note, just so people know, the city rolled out a new program for tenant improvements called Fast Track last week. We're going to start testing it this week. Basically, if you turn in your application by Thursday, we'll review it, give you any feedback, then we'll arrange like a Zoom call with all the right departments the following Tuesday to answer any questions, figure it out, and then issue the permit that Thursday. So the goal is for tenant improvements that aren't structural in nature, we'll be able to get them completed in 1 week. And I know there's some people out there like, how can new businesses be starting? But it's actually pretty interesting. There's a lot of businesses looking to come to SLO, and part of it will be the TI process. So we've been asked by property managers and property owners to see what we could do about TIs, and that's what we came up with, and we're working on it. And we have people dedicated to do it, so it should be a great program. Bettina, do you want to throw up my slides and we can go through some
Yeah.
data that we have?
Yes, please.
Can we see the data first and then we can share that? This is a bigger one. Can we go to the big group of 4? Yeah. So just so everyone knows, we want to trying to figure out what's happening with the city and revenues and business and all those kind of things. A lot of the data lags by sometimes like sales tax data is 3 months behind. Other data can be 6 months behind. So it's difficult to get everything. So we started putting together a scorecard of things we can get quickly to be able to get a sense of what the trends are and what's happening. So if you look at the initial ones we have are unemployment claims, initial claims, and you can see that those spiked and have dropped, but are still higher than they should be. Unemployment rate, you can see what it was in March, and then by July you can see we've been trending down across the board, still very high, but on the way down. Hotel occupancy, you can see again we're way down, but trending in the right direction. Should be noted that in some of the earlier weeks for motel occupancy, there were hotels that were actually closed, but counted in the total occupancy. They were doing renovations or whatever during the process. Then the last one is kind of the one that's most interesting or newest, and it comes from a company called Arrivalist. And basically they take meta cell phone data. So it's basically all the cell phones coming into the county or in the county and how they move around. So not person specific, but they know the origin of the cell phone and they know how it moves. So that's everybody. It's pretty crazy stuff. And what that shows us is you can see in April, we were way down, right? And then we started to come back in May. And then June, we were actually over the number of visitors in June was over what it was June of last year. Okay. So you'll see that difference. It's the 20-ish thousand people or visits, 20-ish thousand visits. And some of that could be protester impact and all that kind of stuff. But still, we've had more people, more visits downtown in June and July than we had last year. Interestingly, that visits are up in July by 6.3%, and the visitors are up by 12.1% year over year. But the unique number of visitors between June and July actually dropped. So what that says is there was more repeat visitors than there were actual unique visitors. So people were in the area and came more times before they left the area than new people came to the area. One of the kind of negative sides is locals are spending less time downtown. So that's dropped considerably from what it used to be. And most of that, at least from talking to those guys, is related to people coming and doing less kind of strolling and shopping and walking around and going to different places. More hitting one place, getting what they want and leaving is probably impact of that. We do have a big hole to fill. We're off 23.8% since year over year since April cumulatively. So it's super interesting data. It's not perfect, but it does give us a trend line and some sense of what's happening. We're also working to get parking data that we can compare to the Arrivalist data and see if we're seeing something similar there. And then we're working to get data from community development to see the number of permits, percentage, et cetera.
That's greatly. And I would also posit that perhaps the number of minutes decrease would be due to things like people not getting their hair done, right? That's an activity that takes a long time, or you're not going to a movie or a play.
Very good. Yep.
Takes a long time.
It's interesting when you look at the data, the scenarios and ideas and impacts you can come up with to help explain it. And the hard part is it's just metadata. And so there's no one to ask. Like, it's just what the cell phones do. So you can't figure out who did what and why and all that kind of stuff, but it's super interesting. And to me, just seeing that we're trending in the right direction is good to know, right? And now that we know from the governor that we're basically in purple, and it's probably, we're not going to get any worse on the closures, and as long as we head in the right direction, it'll get better. I think it's good stuff. So that's that. I think, Carl, you had a question.
I do, Lee. I actually had two questions. One on the hotel occupancy. Is that based on percentage or rooms rented?
It's the percentage of their total available occupancy that's used.
So it doesn't take into account the new hotels that have come online? I guess TOT would actually have to tell us where we are.
The new hotels are in here. So what would happen is the overall number would just go up, but the percentage would still track, right? So the new every hotel, if they go out of service, they get pulled out of the top,
Okay.
and then if a new hotel comes in, they get added, but it's a percentage, so it still runs. The only ones that, like, if they're not permanently out and it's a short term, like when a hotel does a major renovation, that will artificially take the number down a little bit because those rooms are still counted.
Okay.
But not
and then I think you answered the other question, which was on the cell phone usage. If it takes into account more people working from home and people who come in the area with outside area codes but do live here, is that?
So I could be, I don't want to speak too much for the arrival list data, but it's basically, I think, like, if the phone is here kind of at the beginning of the month and the end of the month, or the majority of the time, it gets counted as a local. And it's also where the trip started. Okay. If it's more than 50 miles from downtown, it counts as a visitor. So if somebody's in, more than 50 miles away and they come downtown, that's a visitor. If it's within 50 miles, that's a local to the data.
Okay, thank you.
I can't see the chat box. I got too many screens open here. So is there any other questions that anybody has that I missed or anything?
There are no other questions in the chat. That is super interesting information, Lee. Thank you for sharing it.
And every month as we get it, we can bring it back and share it with everybody.
That's great. And you mentioned sales tax. Are those figures going to be available next month or tomorrow?
3 months behind. So we just got through March.
Okay.
And as you would expect, sales tax was down because the last 2 weeks for that first quarter, the last 2 weeks was basically shut down. So sales tax was down. It was interesting. I think most of the cities were down somewhere between 5 to 7% for that quarter, but it's only 2 weeks out of the whole quarter. Grover Beach was actually up year over year because of the cannabis sales. So,
interesting.
Stuff.
Okay. And now the city has a cannabis retail outlet, so that'll probably
net
have an
good
impact
for us, probably net bad for Grover, because the people that were going to Grover, a lot of them were coming from here.
Right. Gosh, so much interesting data to think about. We'll look forward to hearing about the sales tax data as well.
Yep, as soon as we have it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lee, and thanks for being so available. I'm hearing from a lot of downtown businesses that they appreciate your answering the phone every time, so it's great.
It's my job. Call or email, and I will take care of it.
Great. And there are no other real businesses that are in a new status under the new tiered system other than the barbers and hair salons, like estheticians, nail salons, tattoo shops. Those are still...
Everyone's in everything except barbers and salons is in the same place. I don't know if that will get tweaked. Because one of the things we've seen over the past is they come up with a plan and they do their best to think it all through, but then questions come once it's exposed to the public. So there may be some questions, there may be some things that then drive a slight change over the coming week or two. But my guess is that Newsom generally does a pretty good job of signaling what's coming. So we'll be paying close attention to his press conferences here in the next few days to see if he says, hey, we're still reviewing pieces, or if he's firm on it, and then we'll know more.
Great. And just a reminder for everybody that those press conferences do take place daily. You can stream them on Facebook. They're usually at around noon, sometimes a little bit before. And we will try to keep you up to date in our Downtown SLO Facebook business group. So if you're not a member of that, please join that. And we will go next to everybody's favorite topic about downtown, and that is parking. Gavin, our parking services manager, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Are you on video?
I hope so. I think I am.
There you are. Hello.
I could be wrong. Yeah, no. So we just literally released a flyer this morning. I approved it at the start of the day. So and we'll be handing this out and posting it to social media and on our website. So the big change that's coming is starting on September 8th, which is next Tuesday. We will be re-implementing fees at the 10-hour meters. The last 3 weeks, we have seen 70 to 75% occupancy in the 10-hour meters. So that will be coming back next Tuesday. So parking structures, though, will still be free. A big change that we are going to try to make over the next several weeks, too, is putting better directional signage out there, wayfinding signage for the parking structures. So we're waiting on approval on what that sign is going to be and the placement of them. But we are looking to expand the current placement and have those up. I think one of the problems we currently have, and we've heard it from some customers, is they're not sure and they don't notice our parking signs, so they don't go to the parking structures and they circle downtown. So we are going to be making that adjustment. Right now, our focus is bringing back maybe parking structure fees by the beginning of October. But we're still several weeks away from making a decision on that, and we need the data to show that. So right now, the trend is not hitting 50% or greater in the parking structures for 2 consecutive weeks. So while we are hitting that in 919 and 842, Marsh has been spotty and periodic of not reaching that 50% or greater on a daily basis. So working towards it, and we'll keep everyone updated. Big change coming up over the fall into winter is we're going to start putting in those pay stations. So my team and I were out last week identifying locations for those based around parklets. So we had a plan in place and a map drawn out, and then parklets went in, and we're kind of readjusting around the parklets that are going to be in place at least through June and possibly longer, depending on what City Council decides to do. I think we all really like having those parklets out there, so I think we're all keen on seeing those stay, and we can kind of figure out the placement for parking stalls around those parklets. So that's something we're going to work on extensively over the next couple of years. But I'm hoping by Christmas time, we'll have our pay stations in and a whole new experience with mobile apps and pay stations.
That's just fantastic, Gavin. Thank you very much. And I know that our organization did advocate to City Council that they adopt the multi-space pay stations. For those on the call who maybe didn't watch the City Council meeting and your presentation, could you share how many spaces will be per pay station and what that's going to look like?
Yep. So right now we're trying and kind of adjusted based on the parklets right now, but originally we were trying to have at least 2 pay stations per block to service the number of parking stalls along each side of the block. So like on the 700 block of Higuera, we would have had 4 pay stations out there. We've kind of readjusted that because there's a lot of parklets there, and we've removed some of the parking stalls. But along Marsh, you're going to see pretty much 2 pay stations per block on each side. So four pay stations for a block total.
That's great. And so the meters they'll come out, and then the sidewalk will be filled in.
Correct. Yeah. So once all of our pay stations are in place and we're getting everything adopted, and customer base are becoming comfortable with that, when the pay stations go in, we are going to remove the meter head. The pole will still remain. We're going to use it as temporary mounting places for our signage directing customers to the pay stations. We know that there is some wayfinding stuff that customers need to get used to and identifying where those pay stations are, but the pay station is a sleek, slim probably about 5-foot high device, and then I have to put a nice big bright P on top of it so people can find it, a pay here sign. So, but we will be using the poles temporarily for wayfinding, and then probably in January we'll be removing all the meter poles and then patching over those sidewalks there. So we will have a lot of expanded sidewalk around downtown.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that update. And while I've got you on an open SLO side of things, now that we have the good news that barbers and hair salons can move back indoors, will the parklets in front of those spaces be moved out and those parking spaces be released, or do you not know that yet?
We haven't made a determination on that. So the open SLO team is going to review that. We'll probably give it a week or two to see what's actually happening, because it does take a lot of resources to get those K-rails and parklets into place and pulled out. So we don't want to make a quick decision if things possibly revert, but we are optimistic that things will continue down the path that we've seen through August, where our numbers are starting to trend down. So if we get those spaces freed up, we will be putting parking stalls back in those locations.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, up next, we have our other partner in economic development, the SLO Chamber of Commerce, Jim D'Antona with us this morning. How are you doing today, Jim?
Good, Bettina. Good to see you. Glad
You
to hear all this great information. It's some exciting stuff happening. So thanks for getting this all out. This week we're kind of wanted to let folks know that if you've been a part of the housing summit, it's a 3-part housing summit this year because it's virtual. No one wants to sit in front of this thing for 3 hours. We have our 3rd part coming up, not this week, but next, September 10th, not 11th. And at 2 p.m., I'll drop a link here for those folks to check it out. This will be an interesting one because this will take it, we looked kind of at the state, we looked at kind of the nation, how things were going, and now we're looking at local. So we're inviting all of the cities to come talk about their housing plans. And this should make for a very interesting conversation and really be able to kind of tackle some big issues and have those open discussions. So should be really interesting. If you haven't been a part of it, feel free to join, hit that link, buy a ticket, come on over. If you've already been a part of the first 2, that's just a reminder that on the 10th, the 3rd piece is coming here. So it'll be a great idea and a great discussion. Additionally, obviously tomorrow at City Council, speaking of housing, we will be kind of tackling the housing element, which is the city's, blueprint for providing housing. And it's a major project. We have been working as kind of bringing together our housing coalition of for-profit and nonprofit housers to kind of talk about that and look at how we're looking at the future of housing in the city of SLO. So that'll be on tomorrow night's city council agenda. And we will be there talking about it, supporting. There's some really great, but if you want to hear more about it, I'd encourage you to join the meeting. The best thing, as Molly Kern, my colleague, says, is you can participate in it in your pajamas and dinner right in front of you, and still be partaking in the city council meeting because it's all virtual. And then finally, obviously the big thing that we launched on Thursday at Good Morning SLO, for those who were there, got to see it, but the campaign for Measure G is off and running for the SLO sales tax, as we were talking about sales tax there. And so would encourage folks to go check out the website. It's launched. It has frequently asked questions. Why are we supporting this? Why is this a good thing? And if you're so inclined, you can join as an endorser of that. I know the Downtown SLO Association did take a position in favor. The Chamber has taken a position in favor, and a pretty big growing list on our website there of who's supporting it. But if you have questions, we're certainly willing to answer those and discuss them. There's an entire committee form to deal with that, and you can reach out through that website to do that. And again, I think it's part of how we're going to make it through the other side. And it this Measure G will be an important piece to keeping the place we love the place we love. So thanks for having me here, and looking forward to working with you guys on all of these great things that are happening, especially with the changes to the work, the environment, the business operations, as we do every day, week, month, year.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim. And I second the admonishment that it's really fun to watch City Council from wherever you like. I was watching last City Council meeting from Avila Dog Beach, and it was a delight to watch policy get made while I was watching pups frolic in the waves. I do have a question for you about the housing element, and I will confess that that's not something that I have paid as much attention to. Is there a specific part of the housing element that addresses residences in the downtown?
So what it does is talks more, it's more the 30,000 foot level view of housing. Yes, we should be looking at rental housing. We should be looking at multifamily housing. Where should we be, what types of infrastructure should be around that housing? That's really what this does. It sets that big blueprint idea for housing. And then the idea is when you implement it at that lower level, when you start to do zoning and specific code amendments, then you get to the kind of micro level where you're really kind of block by block planning it out. But this gives us the bigger idea about affordability, the missing middle of housing. You have a lot of expensive housing, you have some affordable, but there's almost zero in the middle for people who don't fall into either of those other two categories. And how we're addressing that is kind of a big deal. And it's a really great plan that the city has kind of launched in this element to discuss how we'll meet the needs in the next decade. Okay.
Yeah, and just for context, there is a project at 1144 Choro Street that is going to be a multi-level, multi-use space, and that has both affordable housing, smaller apartments, and density. I believe it's going to have 60 residential units. So that would fit in with the goal of the housing element, correct?
Correct. Yeah, like the 1144 Charo one is exactly that kind of micro level, that block piece that's based around the housing element, which encourage that type of development.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. And I did want to just follow up and say that the Downtown SLO Board of Directors did vote to endorse Measure G. And just remind everybody on the call that while we do endorse as an organization, we do endorse measures, we do not endorse political candidates. So just a reminder for everybody about that. And thank you for your good work, Jim. We will see you soon. We're in the process of trying to figure out a potential bike storage solution for in front of your space as well. So that's been a fun project. That's very much in its infancy right now. Partnering with Bike SLO County and working with Dusty Coyerworth, your visitor services director.
We're really excited about it. I haven't brought it up just because I know we're in the infancy, but you're right. We should be our area right in front of the SLO chamber there should turn into a pretty cool place here pretty soon.
We're excited about it. I'll just put a little teaser there for everybody so that you come back at our next meeting.
You got it. Thanks. That's awesome.
Right. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have Olivia from the SBDC today? Are you here? I think she is not here today. I did participate. They had a great session on planning for Q2, which was really great last week. But we'll go ahead and move up to the next update, which is everybody's favorite question is what is happening at Cal Poly today?
Hello,
Courtney.
Good morning, everyone. Well, today we are getting ready to move students in. Students start moving in on Thursday, and we stretched out the period that they can move in, so it'll be a 10-day period from the 3rd to the 13th, and then on the 14th, so 2 weeks from today, we are going to fall quarter starts. So I've told you all over the course of the last few months, things have changed so much. We started out not knowing how many classes would be in person, and then we were 15% and then 13%. And now we are at 12% of our about 4,300 classes that will be in person. Those classes conclude on November 20th, and then we are virtual until the start of winter quarter. And then we anticipate that it's very likely that winter quarter will be similar, although it's really hard to project that far out at this point. So many updates in the last couple of weeks. One of them, housing. We typically house about 8,500 students on campus, and that dropped down to less than 6,000, and then it dropped down to 5,150. And now we made the determination that we will only have singles on campus, so one student per room. And we've passed the deadline, was last Wednesday, to defer housing contracts. So we have about 4,250 students that are committed to living on campus. So about half of what we normally have. And first year students, I know this is particularly concerning for some community members. So those additional students coming to the community, where will they go? We made sure that first year students who deferred housing commit to living in their permanent residences if they have virtual classes, so they can't defer housing and then live in the community. And like I said, the move-in period is now 10 days, ending on the 13th. So testing, another big change. Every student living on or attending campus, or that is required to visit campus for any reason, has to now submit a negative coronavirus test, which has to be taken within 72 hours of arriving on campus. Additionally, President Armstrong announced at a town hall on Thursday that I believe some of you were able to watch, that through a partnership with Dignity Health, we're now going to be screening all students who will be coming onto campus for any reason before the start of classes. And then once students get here, they will be issued a face covering and a face shield with instructions for how to use and care for that equipment. After they arrive on campus, current and enrolled students will be able to access COVID-19 testing on campus. I've mentioned that before, free of charge, and we're expecting that results will be able to be given to them the day that the test is taken. We have increased capacity since the last time I updated you all. We are now able to test 600 students every day, and we are looking at continuing to expand that capacity. Contact tracing is another big one. We are in close communication with the county, submitting any names to them as soon as we have them to assist with contact tracing, and we have our own tracers as well. Quarantining, so current and enrolled students who are symptomatic are going to be directed to self-quarantine in their rooms. And then any students that test positive living on campus will be put in isolation. And we have full wraparound services for those students. So meals will be delivered to them and anything else they may need, as well as counseling services. And then I think it's really important to talk about communication and enforcement, which I know I've addressed here as well, but all the things that we're doing to communicate with students, how important it is, how necessary it is to be wearing face coverings anytime they're outside of their home or residence halls, physical distancing, washing hands, and all the other recommended guidelines. So we're doing emails and social media, signs and stations around campus. They're going to be on the floors and on the doors and everywhere we look. And we're also doing awareness training. So through SLO Days and Week of Welcome, which is September 10th through 13th. So coming up. And then enforcement. We've been really clear with students about our expectations of their behavior, both on and off campus. And we have a whole structure in place to help enforce that, and have been, suspension and expulsion can be the results if students are found to be increasing risk to public health. So trying to really reinforce how important this is. And I'm sorry, there's a plane going over. I don't know if you can hear that. And then also reinforcing that the city has the safety enhancement zone. And there's all these mechanisms in place to try to hold them accountable. And I think those are the big things. If you weren't able to watch the town hall that we had on Thursday, I'll post a link in the chat to that. There were a lot of great questions from community members and parents and students about what's happening, so much more than I can cover in this 3 minutes. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Courtney. It's been so helpful to hear your perspective every week as the information changes. I'm curious if you have it seems like the in-person classes are going down like percent by percent by percent. Do you have any thoughts about the announcement that UC Santa Barbara made?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on Friday night, UC Santa Barbara announced that they will have no in-person classes. They had been planning on some. And so one of the questions at the town hall was actually, what are the specific metrics in place that would trigger Cal Poly to go 100% virtual? Or, we've seen around the nation different universities that opened up their residence halls and then within a week had to shut them down, and those types of questions. So at this point, we are still planning to move forward with our 12% of classes in person, but we absolutely have internal thresholds and mechanisms in place. Our EOC director keeps saying to throttle back if we need to, as we're looking at that data about cases.
Okay. And my other question, you probably don't have the answer to this, is really related to how many students you anticipate coming back to San Luis Obispo living off campus. And I know many of us are sort of becoming private detectives and going into Facebook parent groups and looking on Reddit and trying to figure out what that information is. But do you have any indication?
We do. So we surveyed our students. We've done it a couple of times throughout the summer. We did it in June. Would you come back? Would you think you'd come back if Cal Poly was 100% virtual even? What decisions would you make? And there was a majority of students who throughout our surveying process have said, yes, I want to be back in San Luis Obispo, even if I have to isolate in my home, even if all the shelter at home orders are in place and I'm 100% virtual. So we know it's a high percentage. But I saw that our ASI president, Shana Lynch, is on the call too. I don't know if she would like to further give anecdotes to that from the student perspective. But I just know that's the only data I can give you from those surveys that we've done.
Thank you. Totally understandable. Yeah, Shana, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I can just add very quickly, same as Courtney said, around 60% or students said that they would come back even if it was 100% virtual. And I think a lot of that comes down to we signed our leases, and students have signed leases way beginning, and that's just the way the timeline goes. And so even if they don't come back, they're trapped into leases. So that's part of what drives students to come back. But then also just SLO being a great community, even if you're isolating or sheltering in place, being able to go on hikes or have more outdoor space around the community. And so I think what I've noticed in talking to students a lot who had already had leases completed or coming back to the community, but it's definitely important for Cal Poly and us to have ongoing messaging about pushing students to take those precautions so that even if students are coming back, they know it's their personal responsibility to not add any health dangers to our community.
Bettina, can I add to that a little bit more? So ASI through Shana's leadership is doing this whole peer-to-peer campaign. It's really great. I've seen some of the videos already. But on top of that, Student Affairs is also doing a big communication to students as they come back about where you can go. And when you're on the trails, make sure you're following directional signage. Our beaches are still open, but here's our expectation of you at the beaches. Stay physically distanced, wear a mask, do all these things. So trying to balance all of it.
Great. Yes. And I mean, you're basically running a city on a hill up there. So it's a lot. And we appreciate your willingness to share the process with us. And Shana, thanks for joining us. It really is great that we have student leadership join these calls. We know that the Cal Poly student body is so critical to our downtown economy, our environment, not just as customers, but also as workers and interns in our organizations. So we really appreciate your being part of our organization in our downtown. And with that, I would like to just talk a little bit about some of those fabulous amenities that we have downtown, including the wonderful downtown dine out we have in Mission Plaza. There are tables and chairs and umbrellas available for use 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's a great place to take a takeout meal to if you want to have dinner or lunch, or even just grab a cup of coffee and have a physically distanced meeting. We're seeing people really use that space, and it's so great to see Mission Plaza become truly a gathering space for everybody. So just a reminder that that program does exist. We are asking you to save the date. Our downtown ambassador, Austin Bertucci, will be leading a downtown volunteer cleanup day on October 10th. That is a Saturday, and we will have our downtown foresters go out and also do some tree trimming and make sure our wonderful trees look good. And then we'll just be picking up some litter in the Mission Creek area and around the downtown. So it'd be great to have you join us, and we'll provide more information on that in upcoming weeks. Excuse me. We've also been distributing these window clings. We are in this downtown SLO together, including our little upgraded masked O on our logo. So Austin, our ambassador, will be handing those out. If you would like to get one, please email us at reachus@downtownslo.com. And we continue to have weekly meetings with the International Downtown Association, California Downtown Association, Main Street America, learning about what all of the downtowns across the country are dealing with. And those are honestly, some of the best conversations that I have. We're all going through the same things, just in different phases. And I had to see a question from Jeff in the chat. Any plans for opening farmers market? At this time, we are not planning to resume the farmers market. It just doesn't meet the criteria in terms of being a large gathering. But we do have an exciting update, which is that this week, starting this Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m. at our office, 1135 Choro, you can pick up a SLO veg produce box, a CSA, Community Shared Agriculture box. So we'll share a link to sign up for that in the chat. Whitney Cheney can drop that in the chat. And with that, I do want to talk a little bit about consumer confidence and also launch our weekly polls. So we do, excuse me, 2 polls each week. And through our learning with International Downtown Association and the Main Street Association, we've gotten some great information about our consumer confidence in general. So Google actually did a survey that I'm putting on the screen right now. And this is saying when you're planning ahead for the holiday season, that 66% of shoppers are really excited about shopping locally. So that definitely should be a part of your message. And 47% are saying that they're going to use options to buy online or pick up in store or do curbside pickup. The big thing for us all to think about is that for shopping timing, 70% of people said that they intend to plan their shopping earlier. And I think they mean earlier in the season, not just earlier in the day, and will make fewer trips. So we are planning our holiday activations accordingly. And this Google Retail Guide is also a really great, gosh, I'm sorry, I can't link through to it. Maybe I can get Whitney to throw this up in the chat. Anyway, we're looking ahead to the holiday season. It is definitely going to look a little bit different this year, but we will be providing activities and activations to surprise and delight your customers. And you should be thinking about moving your activities online if you haven't already, and really using this message about being safe with your customers. We also learned about another survey from Radial, and they are also giving those same kinds of information here. I shared this link to both of these surveys in the Downtown SLO Facebook business group. So if you are a part of that group, I invite you to join that group so that you can see those things as they come out. And here now, I am also sharing our poll results for just now. We have a mix between being somewhat optimistic and somewhat pessimistic. Okay. More people are very optimistic than very pessimistic, so that's good news. We'll show you what that's looked like in the next slide, and I'll launch the second poll here now. But do join that Facebook business group so you can see links through to blog posts and survey results like these that we can share out with you. So as you answer the second poll, these are the trends that we've seen for the general level of confidence over the last few weeks we've been doing these polls. As you can see, the very optimistic level is kind of, it's looking like a bathtub, so you're going like this. The somewhat optimistic seems to be going down, but very pessimistic does not seem to be going down. So these are not super scientific, but just a very quick snapshot of the people who are in the room taking these surveys. And I'm going to end this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last chance, you're done. Okay, and I'll share the results for this one. You can see the results today and also for over time over the last 4 weeks. So we're continuing to see uncertain consumer confidence, which again is something that we don't have a lot of control over, but we can continue to monitor. And we'd love to hear from you if you're seeing an uptick in customers, if you're seeing an uptick in different kinds of business activities. We'd love to hear about you. If you have a particular success story that you want to share, if you could reach out to us, we'd be really delighted to have you share that story on one of these weekly calls. We are open to question at this time if anybody has one. We encourage you to sign up for those CSA veggies, and you can get your downtown fruits and veggies fix even though the farmers market is not happening. We are continuing to plan for the holidays and look ahead to September. There are a couple of planned actions in the downtown this week, so be aware that there may be some protesters and there may be some roadways impacted. And we are looking ahead to just seeing how we can continue to support you and decode the changing information as it comes. So if there are any other questions, be happy to take those at this time. We are going to take next week off because it is Labor Day. So there will be no weekly call on September 7th. We'll resume these meetings on September 14th. If you find them to be helpful and you would like to invite a friend for that you think would be interested, please invite them to join. We'll send out meeting reminders to your email, and we will look forward to seeing you online and in person around and about downtown. And thank you so much for being here.